Chairman, I'm still awaiting confirmation from the live stream operator. So as soon as I do, I'll let you know.
Thank you, Angela.
Yeah, we're now live, Chairman.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this virtual meeting of the Central Sub-Area Committee. Before consideration of today's business, I will outline the protocols for the meeting. Today's meeting is being live streamed to the public via Microsoft Teams and is also being recorded. When members are speaking, they may choose to use their video. If the Council's live stream fails during the meeting and we cannot share the proceedings, I will adjourn the meeting so that access can be restored. If the issue can't be resolved, I'll halt the meeting and the remaining business will be concluded at a future date. If a member experiences a technical issue, I will adjourn for a short period to try to re-establish their connection. As I call members to speak, I will remind you to switch on your microphone. If for some reason you cannot be heard, the democratic officer will advise you. The vote will be taken verbally by roll call and the result announced by the Democratic Services Officer. Members must be present for the duration of the discussion on each planning application in order to be able to vote. We have public speakers at the meeting today and they'll be joining the meeting by telephone. Where a member has declared a non-registerable interest, a disclosable pecuniary interest, or an interest by virtue of any trade union membership in a matter, they must leave the virtual meeting. Their departure will be confirmed and they'll be invited to rejoin the meeting at the appropriate time. So, to confirm the procedure for today's meeting, members of the committee who wish to speak on an item should indicate by using the X in the chat box. Before we start today's business, I will ask the Democratic Services Officer to ask committee members to confirm they're present and state their electoral division. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll now call your name. Please can you confirm your name and electoral division member? Councillor Alvey.
Good morning, Martin Alvey, member for Fiocc and Plain Place.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Good morning, Malcolm Brown, member for St Austell, Bethel.
Thank you. Councillor Bull.
Good morning again, Jackie Bull, member for St Austell, Poltaire.
Thank you. Councillor Dyer.
John Dyer, Chasewater, Kenwyn and Baldew.
Thank you. Councillor Greenslade.
Good morning, Fred Greenslade, St Dennis and Nanpan Division.
Thank you. Councillor Jewell.
Councillor Alan Jewell, Falmouth, Oslowick.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny.
Good morning, everybody. Councillor Joanna Kenny, Newquay Pentire.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Good morning, John Martin, councillor for Helston South.
Thank you. Councillor May.
Good morning, Councillor May, Penryn West.
Thank you. Councillor Mould.
Good morning, Carol Mould, councillor for St Minver and St Endelian Division.
Thank you. Councillor John Thomas.
Good morning, Councillor John Thomas, electoral divisional member for Lanner and Stillians.
Thank you. Councillor Tudor.
Good morning, Councillor Tudor, councillor for Three Milestone and Glowith.
Thank you. And Councillor Williams.
Good morning, everyone. Councillor Peter Williams for Mabe, St Gluvius and Paranawodo.
Thank you. I can confirm that the following officers are also present. Matt Stevenson, Development Management Group Leader, Gavin Smith, Development Management Group Leader, Laura Potts, Principal Development Officer, Michelle Billing, Principal Development Officer, Loretta Commons, Legal Officer, Nikki Mannell, Affordable Housing Officer. The meeting producer for today's meeting is Angela Saunders, and I'm Emma Code, Democratic Officer.
Thank you very much, Emma. So we move on to the agenda, and agenda item 1, are there any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies today from Councillor Batters.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, declaration of interest. Does anyone have any interest to declare, please?
Madam Chairman, Councillor Peter Williams here. Yes, I want to declare an interest in item 4.2, PA 20/08/522. It's an item that at the moment I'm campaigning this division in the election, and I wish to not participate in any vote or any debate. Thank you.
Thank you. So you'll be leaving the meeting after item 1 then, Councillor Williams?
Well, I would like to sit through it. I don't want to particularly leave the meeting, but if you want me to, I will.
Oh, no, not at all. I just didn't know if you
No, I will sit through the meeting and listen to the debate. And
thank you. Right, agenda item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of February. For accuracy, you've had the minutes. If we do have a proposer, could you indicate in the chat box, please? A proposer and a seconder.
Yes, ma'am. John Dyer proposes.
Thank you. We're all right. I've got some. Thank you, Councillor Dyer, in the chat box. So Councillor Thomas proposes and Councillor Kenny seconds. Do you wish to take a roll call vote, Emma?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll do a roll call vote. If you could indicate whether you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Alvey.
For.
Councillor Brown.
Malcolm Brown, for.
Councillor Bull.
For.
Councillor Dyer.
For.
Councillor Greenslade.
Abstain, not present.
Thank you. Councillor Jewell.
For.
Councillor Kenny.
For.
Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor May.
For.
Councillor Mould.
For.
Councillor Thomas.
For.
Councillor Tudor.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm they have been approved as an accurate record.
Thank you very much. All right, on to applications. So agenda item 4.1, PA 19000933, Mr. A. Lopez, land northwest of Meadowside, Goran, erection of 17 dwellings, 10 affordable dwellings and 7 open market dwellings, and associated access road, parking and open space. The case officer is Michelle Billing. So thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll just share my screen with you all.
PA 19000933.
Has it shared?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
So the key issues for consideration on this application are the impact upon the landscape within the AONB, the provision of affordable housing, the historic environment and highways. This is as you can see, the site in context. This is Goran Haven down here. You've got Goran Church Town. This is the main road running into Goran, and this is the site. The whole of the site falls within an area of great natural beauty, and great weight is attributed to its protection. Within the report, an assessment was made and it was concluded that 17 dwellings would not constitute major development in the AONB, as the landscape has the capacity to absorb the development. Views of the site are easily attained from close by, so from along these roads. So they're easily viewed from around the site. However, the further you get from the site, views are not easily obtained due to the intervening landscape. It was concluded that the harm to the landscape will be moderate to adverse at a local level. This illustrates the site and its relation to the listed buildings. In particular, you've got the Grade 2-star listed Church of St Goran. When viewed from the north, from a public footpath to the north, the development would be seen within the setting of the clock tower. The harm has been assessed as less than substantial, but needs to be considered in the planning balance. This gives you an idea of the rural context of the site. The boundary hedges along here and here will be retained. There'll be a new Cornish hedgerow built here. This front boundary will be removed by a Cornish hedge. To ensure suitable landscape and protection for the landscape and the biodiversity within the site, a landscape ecological management plan condition has been imposed, and a hard and soft landscaping condition has also been proposed. Within the landscaping, there is proposed to be 2-metre buffers within these boundaries to help protect the site. This is the proposed layout of the scheme. As it said, it's an affordable rural exception scheme. So plots 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 are affordable, and plots 12 to 16 are also affordable. So we've got 10 affordable dwellings. The application was supported by a viability report. The scheme has been negotiated by the affordable housing team, which saw the increase from 8 affordable units to 10. The land take of the affordable housing units is 41%, with 59 of the land take being occupied by open market housing. Policy 9 requires that affordable housing occupies a minimum of 50% of the land take. So this diversion from policy needs to be justified. In this case, the highest affordable need was for smaller units, including a bungalow, which have been delivered as part of the scheme. Plot 12 is the bungalow. The affordable land take is lower than 50%, but the provision of units exceeds delivering 59% of affordable housing on the site. It was considered on balance that this proposal was broadly compliant with policy because the tenure and mix of affordable housing directly responds to the need in the area. So this is the highways proposal for the development. The access is being moved from here to this location. There will be a footpath along the front of the site. The street lighting is going to be extended to the 30-mile-an-hour limit here. And as you can see, more street furniture is going to be placed to ensure people are aware of the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. The council's highway officer is satisfied that safe and suitable access has been demonstrated. This gives you an idea of the houses that are going to be proposed. We've got the open market and the affordable. All dwellings will be finished with the same materials: natural slate roof, rough cast render, local stone facing and granite lintels. Those are the open market, the affordables, and some more affordable units. This is looking out of Gorin. The site is located here on the right hand side. This is the old access, so the new access will be roughly here. This is looking east from the existing site entrance, showing what it appears like as you enter into Gorin village. This is taken from the west of the site, driving towards Gorin. As you can see, the site would be seen in contact with other built development. This wall is to be removed and a new Cornish boundary hedge replacing that with a new access. Looking back towards the west, the site would be located in here. And this is the eastern boundary, which adjoins the neighbour to the east. As you can see, there's significant boundary treatment to help mitigate any neighbour impact. The impact upon the AONB has been considered and concluded that the proposed development would have a moderate adverse impact upon the AONB. This harm needs to be given weight in the planning balance. The development would deliver 59% affordable dwellings, which would represent 41% of the land take. The land take is below the required 50%, which is a negative of the scheme. Overall, however, the affordable housing delivers a required tenure and mix of units to address the identified housing need in this area. On balance, the scheme is considered to be broadly compliant with Policy 9, and it is clear that the provision of affordable housing is a positive of the proposal. The public benefit of the provision of affordable housing outweighs the less than substantial harm to the nearby setting of the listed built church, and the highways officer has confirmed that the access is safe and suitable. Therefore, the recommendation is delegated authority to approve the scheme as set out within the addendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. We have two resident public speakers this morning. The first is Mr. Jeff Hayhurst. Do we know if Mr. Hayhurst is with us? Can you hear me, Mr. Hayhurst?
I can, thank you.
Thank you. You're a little bit quiet. I wonder if when you speak, you could speak up a bit. That would be helpful.
I'll do my best.
Thank you. Right, you have 3 minutes, Mr. Hayhurst, and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain. Thank you.
The applicant claims this development would comply with Policy 9. Policy 9 says market housing must not represent more than 50% of the homes or 50% of the land take. That's expressed in mandatory terms. The report confirms, and in fact only 41% of the land take is for affordable housing, but the planning officer recommends taking a pragmatic view, in other words, ignoring the 50% minimum. This cannot be right. Policy 9 gives the same importance to land take as to the number of homes, and I don't think anyone would think it okay if only 41% of the homes were to be affordable. Secondly, Policy 9 requires that developments must be appropriate in scale. Gorran Churchtown currently comprises 55 homes. The Menegwins development referred to in the report is in fact held up while South West Water build a new main sewer through the site. To my certain personal knowledge, the landowner has had recent discussions with affordable housing providers, so this site must not be regarded as abandoned. It will add 15 new houses in addition to 4 which are currently under construction in the village, which means that if this current application is approved, the number of houses will go from 55 to 91. That's an increase of 65%. Now, I accept that the expression appropriate in scale is of necessity a bit vague, but surely no one can view a 65% increase as appropriate. Finally, in June last year, the High Court overturned a planning consent because of a defective viability assessment. The judge said the viability assessment was opaque and unexplained. In particular, it did not identify both the existing use value and the landowner's premium, which had been used to derive the benchmark land value. In this current application, the viability assessment has this exact same defect. On page 6, we are given a benchmark land value
30 seconds remain.
Of £150,000, but not the existing use value or the landowner's premium from which this benchmark was derived. The judge added that relying on such an assessment was a clear and material legal error in the decision-making process. In summary, this application does not comply with Policy 9 in 2 important respects, and furthermore, the council would be acting unlawfully if they approved it. Thank you.
3 minutes, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for clarification of the speaker, please? Just give it a moment in case any X's appear. No, I don't.
Chairman, Councillor Jewell has his hand raised.
Oh, right, Councillor Jewell, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, the Speaker. I've got your name. Could you please? I didn't quite catch this development you said that's been held up by South West Water about this number of houses. I didn't quite catch that. Could you just go over that again for me, please?
Yes, the planning officer's report refers to it. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, the planning officer, the report refers in several places to a development at Menegwins, which is part of Gorran Churchtown. The permission was granted in 2016. There's been a brief start on site, but currently South West Water are there with their machinery putting in a new main sewer. So the landowner cannot proceed with the development.
How many houses do they have stamp permission for, please?
15. 8 affordable, 7 market.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I see no other X's in the chat box. Can you confirm that, please, Vice Chairman?
Yes, I can, Chairman.
Thank you. Then thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Hayhurst.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. And we move on to hearing from Mr. William Fullerton. Mr. Fullerton, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Lovely, and we can hear you. Mr. Fullerton, you now have 3 minutes to put your case, and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for giving me this time to talk on this issue. I am not, of course, against the provision of housing. I do object to its being of a disproportionate amount in a prominent and dangerous site in an attractive rural village. There are other options in the parish, as we've just heard. Gorham Church Town appears to be thriving with pub, shop, church, successful school and cricket club. There are also families with school-aged children, 4 within 100 yards of the post office. It is not just some retirement place which needs revitalizing. 4 houses are now being built, 3 for local letting, 1 for holiday lets. Others have recently been built too. There are also 19 long-term lets. The village does not need urbanizing or substantial population increase. There is the major issue of the entrance to the site between 2 blind bends with 2 more within 100 yards. A potential increase of, say, 30, 40 vehicles, cars, caravans, delivery vans going in and out will be dangerous indeed, particularly given the narrowness of the road, pedestrian and vehicle movement between shop, pub and car park, and entry another blind bend there, parked vehicles on both sides of the road, and the already plentiful through traffic of all sorts, a lot of it heavy. Other projects, 6, have been turned down on such grounds in the past. There is much more traffic now. Any measure to control this would involve more street furniture, congestion, and some sort of footpath for which there is no apparent room without knocking down a house or so. There is also the problem of pollution and environmental damage of all sorts which such an estate would cause. Construction itself would cause major disruption to local and through traffic for 18 months. There are no obvious jobs nearby, and the estate once built would not seem to offer any. There would be more car use, environmentally also not recommended nowadays, locally for work, shopping and leisure in all the local roads. Building ideally should be jobs where jobs are, which I think is government policy in general. And in the housing context, I understand that Cornwall is doing very well, being well over target in this area. As we can see, large housing developments are visible in Truro, St Austell, Probus, to name just a few. There are many other objections to which councillors will be aware, the AONB one is in particular, and this is a special part of the AONB we're talking of, not just any part. In sum, this is the sort of site and situation which helps give Cornwall its special character and attracts people here. It needs preserving. We very much hope this divisive and worrying project will not be allowed. Once the damage is done, it cannot be undone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fullerton. Are there any questions for clarification, please? Councillor Brown, please.
Yes, I wanted to ask Mr. Fullerton just to comment a bit further about the highways issues, which he featured in his remarks. On our screen at the moment, we've got before us the officer presentation, which says the highways officer has confirmed that the access is safe and suitable. Would Mr. Fullerton like to comment further on what we should make of those remarks?
Yes, I think they're absolutely amazing. Why 6 times between 1963 and 2003 they've been turned down proposals for this site on those grounds? And now the traffic is much heavier than it was in those days. If you drive around there, you come around absolutely blind bend, and then another one, and then very short time after that, you come to the pub car park, which is another blind bend going in, and that's where a lot of people and cars go in and out there. So to have the sort of traffic I've described coming in and out around that area, it must be dangerous. I do not understand how it cannot be, and how any change of view has come about now when 6 times in the past it's been turned down.
Thank you. I see no other crosses in the box. Can you confirm that, please, Vice Chairman?
Yes, I agree, Chairman.
Thank you. Then in that case, Mr. Fullerton, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very disappointed to see we have no parish council representative here, but we move on to Mr. Ed Pearce, who is the agent for the application. Can you hear us, Mr. Pearce?
I can, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
We can. You're not as loud as perhaps you could be. Maybe you could speak up a little bit as you're going through.
Yeah, not a problem at all.
Thank you. So, Mr. Pearce, you have 3 minutes and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain. Thank you
very much. Morning, Madam Chair and members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application. I only intend to take a short amount of your time this morning, given the positive recommendation for this application. I would like to thank officers who have worked collaboratively on this application, which has resulted in the recommendation before you. The development of this site has been subject to public consultation, albeit in 2016, and the details of that were included in the planning statement which accompanied the application. We have also attended numerous meetings with the parish council to keep them updated on the progress. This is an affordable-led housing scheme which will deliver 10 much-needed affordable homes for local families within the parish. It responds directly to identified need, including the provision of a bungalow, and I would draw your attention to paragraph 2 of the committee report. In terms of the impact on the AONB and nearby heritage assets, your officers have rightly concluded that the benefits of providing the affordable homes in the parish, which it should be noted is entirely contained within the AONB, has greater weight than any perceived impact on the AONB or the heritage assets, and I would draw your attention to paragraph 11 of the committee report. I would urge members to support the officer recommendation to approve the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gosh, that was short, Mr. Pearce. Thank you. I've got some questions coming through for you, if you wouldn't mind just staying with us a moment. We start with Councillor Alvey and then Councillor Kenny. Councillor Alvey.
Thank you very much, Chair. Notwithstanding the points that have already been made by some of the previous speakers around the fact that Policy 9 is quite explicit in stating that both number of housing and land take should be in excess of 50%, and we know that this isn't in excess in terms of the land take. One of the other guiding principles of any site such as this, any exception site, is that the affordable housing and the market rate housing should be tenure neutral to view. I'm just wondering how you explain the fact that the 7 market rate houses are large dwellings in large gardens, and the affordable element are basically terraces. How will this ever be seen as anything other than not tenure neutral?
Thanks, Chancellor. I think I understand the question. In terms of affordable housing and open market, I mean, you can have open market terraces, and you can have affordable semi-detached and detached. I think the tenure blindness goes actually with the design of the houses rather than them being terraces or semi-detached or detached dwellings. It may be something that you might want to ask your officers in that respect, because clearly they're of the view that it's acceptable in that regard. But I think the design of the houses, which is the key when you drive through or you walk through, you won't be able to tell the difference whether it's an open market terrace or an affordable detached house. I don't think you'll be able to tell the difference purely by the size or the type of house. It's the design, use of materials, and those sorts of things.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you. I was interested in the relationship with the rest of the field to the northeast. Is the fact that it's curved, is that because there's a wall there already? or is there some logical reason as to why that's curved like that? And I have to say, it looks like there's a road that's heading to nowhere and could very well be the start of another development on the adjacent part of the field.
Right, I think without seeing the plan, I think I know what you're talking about. So in terms of the curve, it was it's a design. I mean, there's no real reason, fundamental reason why it's a curve. It produces some sort of interest. It's slightly irregular. In terms of the road leading to that field, there is a requirement that that my clients maintain an access into that field. So it's not blocked off, because the access into the field currently, as has been highlighted, is from the road in the corner. We need to maintain an access to the rest of that field. And there is a sorry.
So I was going to say, what is the rest of the field used for? There's no height difference. The
rest of the field is farmed. Now, I mean, in terms of any future use, I don't know. My clients don't control that piece of land. That would be, if there was anything to go there, that would be in the future, and that would be an application that would need to be submitted to the council. But as far as I'm aware, I don't know what the plans are for that. As I say, it's outside my client's control.
So it's outside of, it's a different ownership.
Well, I mean, they don't. My clients don't control that piece of land.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Yes, I want to ask broadly the same question that I asked Mr. Fullerton a few minutes ago, but bearing in mind that an independent highways report has been provided. Can you explain why you agree with the highways officer that the access is safe and suitable, and therefore why the objectors are wrong to claim that it isn't?
Obviously, I would say, in terms of what Mr. Fullerton was saying, guidance has clearly changed over time, and certainly over the time period that Mr. Fullerton was talking about. And when you judge it against the relevant guidance in the MPPF, I think your highways officers have come to the right conclusion that it doesn't lead to a severe cumulative impact in terms of highway safety. I mean, the proposal, as is pointed out, yes, there are two sharp bends at either end, which actually will slow traffic down, and therefore putting the access centrally is the right place for the access, and traffic will be coming slowly round those corners because they are quite sharp, as I'm sure members will be aware. Furthermore, the proposal is seeking to extend the 30-mile-an-hour zone beyond the site, so actually that people coming into the village, before they hit that bend, the 30-mile-an-hour zone will start. And I think that's probably the reasons why your highways officers have said what they've said.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Brown?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Tudor, you're next, please.
Thank you. Yes, I just given the point that Councillor Alvey made, which I believe is correct, that under the policy 9 rule exception site, that the houses, that the affordable and market houses should be tenure blind, and given that the affordable housing is much smaller, with much smaller gardens, particular than the market housing, so therefore not tenure blind. I wondered if I could ask you, was there a particular problem with in the design and the landscape here that didn't allow the developer to allow a further 9% of land to the affordable housing? I mean, surely it would just been a simple matter of making the gardens a bit bigger.
I think, I mean, there's a couple of issues there. It's firstly, we are as your officers have rightly pointed out, we are meeting the sort of specific identified need, which is typically for smaller houses.
Yeah.
Additionally, I think that there's an issue, and a perennial issue, in terms of the land take, in terms of what affordable housing providers want to provide. So, you know, they don't want larger gardens, and that's typically something that we've always struggled with, I think, as providing affordable housing. I take the point that members make, but these are smaller units, and typically with smaller units you'll get smaller land take, and we've reflected the need in the parish in terms of what's there, and that's to the extent that we've provided you know, a bungalow. So we're responding directly to the need and delivering the houses that are actually required. They are smaller units, and typically the land garden provision for those is typically smaller.
Thank you. I notice it's the same for your 3-bedroom affordable rent as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Right, did I see your hand raised, please, Vice Chairman? Councillor Greenslade, did I see your hand raised?
Yes, you have, Chairman,
Right.
but for some reason I can't lower it. If I could have some advice, I've got no...
I've lowered it for you, Councillor Greenslade.
Thank you.
Did you want to ask a question?
No, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No problem. I see no further crosses in the box indicating questions. Can you just confirm that, please, Vice Chairman?
Yes, I can, Chairman.
Thank you. Then we move straight on to the divisional member. That's Councillor Mustoe. Councillor Mustoe, you know the rules by now. You'll be asked to sum up after 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, committee. Thanks also to Mr. Hayhurst and Mr. Fullerton for your eloquent presentations. This is an interesting site and one which has been an application for development on in one form or another ever since I was first elected to represent St Goran Parish in 2014. I'm pleased then that I have the chance to see a decision made on it before I end my time as Cornwall Councillor for this area in May. Planning decisions can become very politically charged around election time, and as I'm not standing in this area, I can say I'm calling this in with no fear of losing votes from any of the electorate. Firstly, I note that the Parish Council did support this application, albeit by a very narrow vote. It is a shame that they could not be here today to present their position. Your officer's recommendation is for approval on fine balance, and I'd like to put on record my thanks to the officer involved who has taken on this application at a late stage and produced a fair report that lists the pros and cons of building on this site. My own view is that this application should be rejected. Again, much as with your officer's recommendation, this is on fine balance, but I do give greater weight to the harm that would result to the local AONB, and I do not believe that this development as it stands is enough to trump this damage. The application site is within the AONB and is currently an agricultural field. As your report says, the Cornwall Local Plan and the National Planning Policy Framework require planning permission to be refused for major developments in the AONB except in exceptional circumstances. The Cornwall AONB unit has objected to this, saying the development of this number of dwellings in what was currently open agricultural land will be in marked contrast to the existing landscape character. The designation of this landscape as an AONB confirms its importance and sensitivity and confers the highest status of protection as per NPPF Para 172, and this is fully embedded at all levels of the development plan. That being said, I do believe that development sites of this nature will only be up to should only be up to be recommended for approval if they are 100% affordable. The applicants were asked to increase the number of affordable units on site. Instead of making them a greater percentage of the originally proposed 15 units, they instead added another 2, bringing the total number of units up to 17. And the AONB objected to this also, saying that the increase in the number of dwellings will not serve to mitigate the harmful effects already identified on the designated landscape. So in terms of potential planning reasons that you could give to reject this application, can I suggest that this application on this site falls short of NPPF section 12, achieving well-designed places, subsection 127. This application does not satisfy these criteria and so fails in this regard at NPPF level. And NPPF section 15, para 172 of the NPPF, as noted above, around damage to the OMB. And then in the Cornwall Local Plan, policy 23 of the Cornwall Local Plan requires that major development within the AONB will be refused subject to specific tests, which in this case I believe have not been met. Policy 2 sets out broad and ambitious requirements for new development within the county, particularly in regard to respecting and enhancing quality of place. This application outside the built form of the village has not demonstrated how it addresses these requirements. Policy 9 of the Cornwall Local Plan addresses rural exception sites and identifies that these are required to be well related to the physical form of the settlement and appropriate in scale, character and appearance. This proposal, with its location in the designated landscape setting of Gorran, does not comply with this policy. Policy 23, Natural Environment, requires that development proposals will need to sustain local distinctiveness and character and protect and where possible enhance the landscape character and natural beauty of the AONB and provide only for an identified local need and be appropriately located to address the AONB sensitivity and capacity. This application does not do that. And policy B7 of the Cornwall AONB management plan is also not met when cross-referenced with policy MD5. I believe, as demonstrated by similar appeal decisions highlighted by recent correspondence from the Campaign to Protect Rural England regarding an appeal for an application at Mullion, that if refused today, a decision on this application could be defended by the council at appeal. Please then, will committee members agree with me and subsequently refuse this application? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mustoe. Are there any questions? Right away coming in, Councillor Alvey, please.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Mustoe, just accepting for a moment that there could possibly be a justification for some affordable housing within the parish. Do you believe that there are other sites within the parish that would be far more suitable than this, and so actually, whilst the need might be there, there are more appropriate sites that could be identified?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Alvey. And yes, I do. There's the previously highlighted extent plan and permission at Menegwins, which is on the other side of the village, and also closer to the school for affordable housing. And I think the specifics of that have already been covered. And also, I've been really pleased to work with Cornwall Council and the County Farms Department to have land set aside from the Carvinnock Farm estate, which could in the future be used for affordable housing, although that's in the very early stages of looking at, and that's being considered by the neighbourhood plan group and within the committee, although it will be long after my time as a councillor.
Many thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny.
Thank you. Can we have a quick look at the screen where you have the view from above, the green one, the rural situation? No, it was from above. Right, thank you. My question was quite similar to Councillor. Can you just explain where those two sites you were talking about are?
Yeah, so there's, if you go back to the Google Maps one, I presume, yeah, you've got Menegwins there, where the cursor is there, there's Menegwins, so that's, and you'll see the school is down to the left there.
Yeah.
And then the other site is down at the bottom of Trelispin Park thing, down at the sort of moving, yeah, just above where the cursor is now. Okay. It's actually adjacent to the village of Gorran.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jewell.
Yes, from this site, can you glance the dear old sea? Can you look over the sea from this site anywhere, James, or is it just all in the country?
No, it's completely surrounded by rolling vistas and fields.
Okay.
And the village.
And do you know what grade land is? I can't see it in the report. Do you know what?
No, I haven't seen that. I mean, it's a nice green field.
Okay, I'll ask that of the officer. Thank you, James.
Thank you. I see no other questions for the divisional member. Again, can you confirm, please, Vice Chair?
Yes, Chairman, that concludes for the moment.
Thank you. Then we move straight on to questions. Thank you, Councillor Mustoe. Sorry. We move straight on to questions of the planning officer. Are there any questions of the planning officer, please? Thank you.
Councillor Brown, Councillor Kenny.
Right, thank you. Councillor Brown.
Yes, I want to ask first, and then I'll follow this up. Is there a highways officer present?
I don't think there is.
Yeah, well, it's Councillor Wilkes, Gavin Smith here. We do have a highways present.
Oh,
sorry, we do have a highways officer even present.
Okay. Given that, I'll ask the question I wanted to ask. Paragraph 120 merely reports that the independent transport assessment has been provided, but makes no comment on it whatsoever. Can the highways officer advise us why he thinks we should pay less attention to that than the advice that he's giving?
Good morning, Chairman, and good morning, Councillor Brown. My name is Paul Steen, Principal Development Officer of the Highways team, and I assessed this application going back to 2019. The document you're referring to was submitted last September, I believe. It offers comment on that individual's view of this proposal. In my opinion, it offers fairly generalised opinion. There's no evidence to back up the position stated. In my view, the comments, the position I got to was stood as even in the light of that assessment.
I don't know that, is that a wide enough answer for your question, Councillor Brown, or would you like to come back again?
I think it's a wide enough answer to help the way my thought process is going. Thank you very much.
Oh, right, thank you. Okay. Councillor Kenny, please.
Thank you. There's some quite lengthy comments from paragraph 34 on from the public open space team who are not happy with the design and the open spaces. Has compensation or has the design changed to incorporate those concerns, or are the concerns still extant?
Since the final comments, the first comments, the open space was slightly tweaked, but due to the viability and due to the scale of the site, open space in terms of what would normally be expected, there wasn't the room to do it. So if the application is supported, there would be an off-site financial contribution to go towards the playing fields at Gorin.
So when they're talking about the amenity between plots 8 and 9 still poorly area oriented, being sandwiched between rear garden fences, that continues to be the same. And I've seen developments before with the sort of water feature down in the corner, and they're usually beautiful, but it is quite clear that the people who are going to be benefiting for that are the market houses, not the affordable houses, who are the ones who have the poor amenity space near to them. Is that a fair analysis?
I think so, yeah. So it has been changed slightly. So this area of informal open space is better overlooked, and we've got a landscaping condition imposed to make sure that the boundary hedges mean that it's usable but viewable as well. So it would be in terms of a safe area, and this would be more of an informal sitting area.
But none of those are particularly near the affordable housing.
That's correct, apart from that one, I guess, is opposite, but yeah, the open, these are the affordable housing here as well, so it's quite related to those, but like I say, it is deficient, and that's why we've got an off-site contribution.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alvey, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Really, it's going back to the questions I asked earlier of the applicant. First of all, do you accept that as planning committees, we're constantly told that our powers of decision making very much centre around the subjective rather than the objective? Do you agree that policy 9 is an objective policy in stating that 50% of the land take should be affordable? There's no subjectivity in policy 9 with regarding that. Next question or point is again around the 10-year blindness, and do you accept that this development is not 10-year blind, even if the finish of the housing is to be similar? The very nature of the design is not 10-year blind. And thirdly, what sort of sequential test has been done to see if there is a more suitable site for this housing within the area, bearing in mind the AONB constraints?
Okay, so firstly, a sequential assessment isn't required as part of an application submission, so they're not required to do one under the local plan. With regard to policy 9, the policy does rightly say and 50%, but I think what I've referred to in the report is we've looked at the local plan as a whole, and we've said it's broadly compliant when we take into consideration the need of the units in the area and what size units we require. So I think with all decisions, sometimes different policies can pull in different directions, but obviously I have made it clear in my report that it's broadly compliant. Regarding the 10-year blind, I appreciate that what you're saying, that the affordable housing are smaller than the open market housing. Again, it was negotiated with affordable housing, looking at a viability that they have submitted. What I can say is the finishes of the houses are the same, so they will have the same natural material. So in terms of visually, there's no lower grading of materials. I'm not 100% sure, and I'm wondering if the affordable housing officer can give any guidance. It was indicated by the developer earlier on that housing associations don't really like houses with huge gardens. I'm not sure whether that's correct or not, but obviously on this site they have achieved a 70-30 split, which is required by policy 9, so 70% rental, 30% sale for the affordable housing. So whether garden space is something that needs to be considered when you've got housing associations taking them over, I'm not too sure. I don't know if Gavin or Nikki have got anything to add to that.
I was wondering if the affordable housing officer would like to come in for a moment, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's Nikki Mannell. I've gone blank now. Sorry.
Gardens.
Right, so thank you. There's a mix depending on the registered provider, and my understanding is there isn't any policy that we have to hang garden sizes on. So it depends on the registered provider. You know, some that we work with would prefer to see larger gardens. Some prefer smaller ones in terms of keeping the homes affordable in general. So they're not on massive plots, but also about how the householders kind of manage and look after those spaces. So, you know, a sort of standard garden size is acceptable, but my understanding there isn't a minimum or maximum size guide for external space.
Thank you. Does anybody want to ask the affordable housing officer anything? Because if you do put your cross in the box. Michelle, do you want to come back any more on Councillor Alvey's questions? Or have you finished?
I don't think so. I think I covered everything. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jewell. You're next, then Councillor Tudor.
Yeah, question, Michelle. The grade of the land would be greatly appreciated if you could dig that out. I don't know if I've quite seen it there. The grade of the land, and perhaps the affordable housing officer. You know, do we know what provider it is? We've heard all these stories about these house providers, how they let them for local people for so many weeks and months, and after that, if they aren't taken up, they go out to the bigger area, and then we may have people coming down from who knows where. You know, is this another one of those scenarios that could happen in the future? I'm not sure, but the land is of great importance to me. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you.
Can I ask the affordable housing officer to please answer that point that Councillor Jewell makes, that we hear all the time outside about people coming down to take our affordable housing?
Thank you. These affordable homes will be secured by Section 106, so that will clearly give priority to the local parish. So that will be the initial allocations, and future allocations will be subject to that. So the homes cannot be allocated to someone outside of the county as the broadest allocation, but in this case there will be a Section 106 that will cover all those affordable dwellings, which will be retained as affordable for local households in perpetuity.
Well, I've heard that they do house swaps throughout the country in the future on these associations. Is that correct?
You won't be able to swap unless you meet the local connection criteria.
No worries.
Thank you. Now, you had a second question, didn't you, Councillor Jewell?
Yeah, I'm just waiting to grade the land, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jewell. Paragraph 127 of the report. So it's down on our system as grade 3, but there wasn't an agricultural soil classification submitted with it. So we've assessed it as 3A, which is best and most versatile.
Thank you.
So obviously the loss of 1 hectare would also have to be taken into consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Tudor, you're next, and then Councillor Mould.
Thank you. I have it's a question for the Affordable Housing Officer. Hi. I'm being a bit pedantic about this point on the gardens. So the agent more or less, well, hinted that the housing provider in this case, because of the type of housing and the need, wouldn't mind at all having the smaller gardens. But I just wanted to confirm that's not something that's been asked of this development.
Thanks, Councillor Tudor. I'm not aware we've had any specific discussions around the garden size. I'm not aware they're particularly small. So there would be, sort of a standard size for what we would expect from an affordable dwelling.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is for the Affordable Housing Officer. Can you just tell me where the cascade is from this parish? How far does it cascade out? And it is my understanding that after the cascade has gone out, if they are not taken up, we then go county-wide. Is that the process you would work to?
Yeah, I would just need to look up what cascades we've put into this. So it'll be the neighbouring parishes. So those parishes that touch St Goran, that would be the secondary parishes. So the applications, when a vacancy becomes available or when the properties are initially let, then priority would always be given to those that have a local connection to St Goran, and then it would cascade out to the secondary parishes. If there wasn't anybody in either of those, then it would go out to county.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Jewell.
Sorry, Michelle, yeah. These open market houses, because the Garden Neighbour Plan is in a very early stage yet, there's nothing stopping somebody buying these open market houses as a holiday home, is that correct?
Yeah, that would be correct.
No worries, thank you.
Right, thank you. Michelle, I'm finding it quite strange that with residents speaking against in this way and objecting and so on, and so many points raised, the parish council, though, supported but didn't come along today. Do you have any further information on that and the parish council stance? Is it because of the number of people in the area looking for affordables? Do you know any more?
Unfortunately, I don't. Obviously, they did support it, and as it's written in the report, their housing needs survey that they did for their neighbourhood plan showed quite a few hidden households. So there is need in the area. So I'm not 100% sure why they haven't registered to be here today. So I apologise for that.
Yeah, and their paragraph was quite short as well. Okay, right, thank you. Now, I don't see any more questions. Again, can you confirm that, please, Vice Chairman?
All clear, Chairman.
Thank you. Just before we go into debate, Gavin, is there anything you wish to say to the committee in this?
Thanks, Councillor. But I think all the main issues have been discussed. In fact, I know they have. The committee's got the classic balancing exercise here to undertake of housing need versus harm to an A and B landscape, and I know you've all done that before, and I know there's different opinions on that. So that's, and I know you're also very much familiar with the policies. Each needs to be given weight, and you need to come down on one side of the coin or the other. We as officers feel that it is acceptable, as set out in the report. The landscape itself, there will be harm, but it'll be mainly localised. The other issue that's been talked about a lot, and rightly so, is the land take. Of course, affordable housing led is defined by two ways in our policy. That's land take and the number of houses themselves. In this case, at 59% is affordable, so that's acceptable. And you're right that the land take is low, which is a negative of the scheme. What hasn't been touched on that much in terms of your debate anyway, is that we have had viability evidence given to us to confirm that this is all that can be offered with this scheme. And the other thing I'd like to make, if I could, Chair, is the talk about tenure blind and design. There are, of course, the drawing that Michelle's got on at the moment is quite good to show that. You can see the homes, and on the right it says whether or not they're open market or affordable. And plots 4 and 3, of course, are affordable. Now those semis to the left. So when I look at pepper potting and tenure, well, when I look at the question, is it us and them, which I think is what you're looking at, I look at the design, I look how well they're dispersed in the development. And in this case, I think it is acceptable insofar that there's a mix of design. They're all using the same materials, and those materials are good materials. So I'm quite happy with that. I think the issues that committee need to be focusing on are the positives and the negatives, which is landscape harm, affordable housing led. And one other issue, sorry for dragging on, is that we haven't really talked about the impact on the listed church, which is about 150 metres to the south. And that we've identified some harm, but of course there are homes between this site and the church at the moment. That's all I've got to say at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Gavin. Right, we move into debate. Who wants to start, please? Councillor Jewell, is that you? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Jewell, then Councillor Alvey, please.
No worries. Yeah, I think we've given this a good airing, this application. I'm very concerned about this application. It is one of these developments which is not needed in my view. If it was 100% affordable, as touched on by Councillor Mustoe, it could be acceptable, but this is plainly not. As per usual, the people of Cornwall being pushed in the corners for the affordables, and the open market ones are having the best places, the best areas. The open space area is going to be next to some of the open market houses. So when you add all that in the open public space, they're going to have far better ones. They could all end up as second homes. It's way out, it's not connected. The policies are there in place. I could go on forever, but all the policies that were brought up by Councillor Mustoe, the outstanding natural beauty, policy 9, policy 23, policy 172, the NPPF, I could go on forever. There's loads of policies here which we can turn this down. And as Gavin just brought out another one I put in about the listed church. I mean, we don't need to have these developments like this. It's just ruining, you're killing the goose that lays the golden egg in Cornwall to stick this type of development in an area of outstanding natural beauty. Is it for the benefit of Cornwall? I think not. This is not needed. The cascading of the houses are affordable. We know what could happen to this. We could have people coming out from anywhere eventually, and I've seen it. We've seen it happen. We've all got concerns about these affordable houses and how they get these affordable houses. And it's not right. There's more people moving in here, and then second homes as well when they're left empty, which is even worse for us people of Cornwall. So I would definitely propose that we refuse this. I'm prepared to propose it now. Refusal on all the grounds which Councillor Mustoe put in. Policy 9, Policy 12, 177, 15, 23. The list can go on and on. I will not accept this one bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jewell. So I have a proposal for refusal. Councillor Brown, I've just seen your cross bang right up now. Is that because you wish to second this?
Yes, I'd be very pleased to second refusal. Do you want me to say a few remarks?
Yes, please. You speak now, of course.
Okay. The only point I think I want to make, because as others have said, we've gone over this argument, over the debate about the issues here for quite some time, and I'm pleased that Gavin, in his final words of his advice to us, mentioned the impact on the church. And I just want to extend that a bit further, because prior to lockdown, I used to go to Goran quite frequently because I know several people who live there. And I must admit, Goran Church Town has an outstanding character. It really is like stepping back in time when you go there, and even the sort of newer development that has occurred does link into the older village extremely well, and it is a lively village. I think the advice Councillor Mustoe gave you on that was absolutely correct. The only other thing I wanted to say is that, and I don't have an interest here, I'm just going to state something factually. Over the weekend, I think members will have received a postcard from a lady called Sue Tonkin. Now, I don't know her socially, but I have had dealings with her on and off since the 1970s on various planning applications and issues, like when she was one of the prime objectors to proposals from a Birmingham company to build 500 houses south of the A390 in St Austell. And I just want to, if you like, give her a sort of reference as being somebody who has a commitment to planning and good quality development in Cornwall. So to those of you who don't know her, I hope you will take seriously what she's said. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Right, we move back to the debate. Councillor Alvey, you're next, please.
Thanks, Chair. Really, I've got nothing to add to what has already been said by Councillor Jewell and Councillor Brown. So nothing more to add, and I would suggest, unless there anybody else is wanting to speak in favour of the application, that we possibly even go to the vote.
Right, I've got 3 more speakers. If you wish to continue speaking, please do, but perhaps we could be concise. Councillor Tudor, you're next.
I'd like to speak in favour of the application. I pretty much disagree with everything that's been said, and I think I was quite shocked actually to hear Councillor Jewell say that we could have people coming here from anywhere taking up those affordable housing, because there are rules in place to make sure that doesn't happen, and this is something that we hear too much. Chinese whispers, urban myths, call it what you will, and it means that decisions are made which stop local people being able to have affordable housing. Now, I've been involved myself, work with the Cornwall Land Trust, where we put in planning applications, sometimes successful, sometimes unsuccessful, for affordable housing in areas of ANOB areas of outstanding natural beauty. The reason why affordable housing is needed, particularly in areas that are beautiful, is because that's where the expensive housing is. So it's no surprise to me to see a planning application for affordable housing in an ANOB site. Personally, I'd like to see more of them. It's not right that that people that live in these areas want to preserve them in aspect, draw up the drawbridge and not allow people with a local connection in order to be able to afford to live there. I feel quite strongly about that, and that's why I would be voting in favour of this planning application.
Thank you, Councillor Tudor. Councillor Martin, did you wish to still speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, I'm not keen on this at all. Basically, it's the relative scale to the settlement. If there are 55 homes there already, 17 extra within a short period of time, additional, I think would be quite a shock to the community, and I think it's much too large a development, suiting more to Gorenhaven than Goren Churchtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Kenny, do you wish to still speak?
Yes, very briefly, I would like to sort of add, because I'm not going to support this application. I have to say I disagree with Councillor Jewell and agree with Councillor Tudor that the myths about affordable housing are not the case. I do think in this one that I don't have any objection to the size of the gardens for the affordable homes. I do have an objection that the affordable homes really don't get their share of the amenity space, which is exactly what the public space officer says. So it would appear that the amenity space for the affordable housing is not adequate. And there doesn't seem to be, as he says, any access for them to get to the rather nice water feature that I'm sure they're going to have in the north. I also think this is probably a poor precedent. I know we look at what we've got, but we can all see what's going to come next. So I just think this is the wrong place for this estate.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kenny. I see no other indications for debate. Can you concur with that, please, Vice Chairman?
Has Councillor Brown spoken? Because he is the last on my list.
He did, because he put his cross into second.
Okay.
Thanks.
If I could just offer a comment.
Yeah, of course.
I think the general consensus is what I would agree with, is to refuse this application, because the planning officer said it's, broadly speaking, in line with policy. Well, that says to me that some of it is not in line with policy, so therefore I would be refusing this application.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to Gavin a moment before I go to the vote. Gavin, some policy numbers and some words have been used for refusal. Policies 9, 12, 172, 23. Would you like to say a word or two about possibly advising?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I think I've picked up on some reasons for refusal, and if I could, I'll also address the issue that been raised by Councillor Kenny about the accessibility to the amenity space. I think the reasons for refusal should be something like this. The proposal is not affordable housing led, with open market dwellings occupying more land on the application site than affordable dwellings, and the introduction of the proposed 17 new homes with associated infrastructure onto an undeveloped field would harm the distinctive rural character of the area to the detriment of the surrounding AOMB. The application fails to provide special justification to allow new homes in the countryside, is not sustainable development, and is contrary to the aims and intentions of policies 1, 2, 7, 9, 12, 23 of our Cornwall local plan, and paragraphs 8, 124, 127, 170 and 172 of the MPPF. So that reason for refusal picks up on AOMB harm and not being affordable housing led. If you are going to refuse it, I'd also recommend that we include the impact to the St Goran Church, which is the Grade 2 star listed building, because I know, as you're all aware, when we look at harm to heritage assets, we need to balance the public benefits of the proposal against the harm. And in this case, if we are going to refuse it, we'd be concluding that the public benefits don't outweigh the harm. So we've identified harm to it. So I'd also have another reason in there, which would read something like this: the proposal would result in less than substantial harm to the setting of St Goran Church, a Grade 2 star listed building, by introducing the proposed 17 homes and associated infrastructure onto a nearby undeveloped field. The public benefits associated with the proposal do not outweigh this harm, and the application is therefore contrary to policies 2, 12 and 24 of the Cornwall local plan, and paragraphs 193, 194 and 196 of the MPPF. And just if I could touch on the comments by Councillor Kenny, I think it would be difficult for us to have a robust reason to refuse it for the access to the limited amenity limited amenity spaces on the site, insofar that so the affordable dwellings, not hellings, on the top left of the site, plots 3 to 7. I don't know. I'm guessing that they'd be 10, 20 metres walk to the area at the top, and the ones down the bottom, the terrace, again, easily walkable. We do have some national guidance on what is and what isn't walkable, and I've probably busted that out onto you guys before, but it's roughly at about 800 metres, depending on what type of walk it is, of course, whether it be steep crossing roads and all those sorts of constraints. But I really wouldn't be comfortable and urge you not to turn it down for the accessibility to the open space on the site, because if people were living there and they did want to access that, in my mind, they could. It's easily be walkable. So as things stand at the moment, I think that the refusal, if you're going to refuse it, should be about it not being affordable housing led, impact to the countryside, which is an AOMB, and also impact to the nearby listed church. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Councillor Jewell, are you happy to take that wording from?
No.
You're not?
No, not happy. He's forgotten. It says here on paragraph 127, best and most versatile land, grade 3A, which is also considered in the planning balance above. So surely, Gavin, you must put that in.
Yeah, no, if you'd like to put that in, we can put that in.
Yes, I would like to put that in as a farmer. I mean, we've seen all these little developments nibbling away, and it all adds up.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think Mr. Councillor Dyer will back me up on that. This is best, most versatile land, and that is a negative on the scheme. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm happy with it.
Yes, thank you. That's the bit.
Let's get to the vote here.
Yeah, hang on. We have to find out if the seconder is happy or wishes to comment. Councillor Brown.
Yes, I'm perfectly happy to go along with the reasons Gavin has just recommended, with the additional one that Councillor Jewell wants to add. Right, thank you. Then we're ready to go to the vote. The proposed refusal proposed by Councillor Jewell and seconded by Councillor Brown, with the wording as you've just heard, and the addition of the best and most versatile land. Emma, would you like to take the vote, please?
Thank you, Chairman. It will be a roll call vote. If you could indicate whether you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Alvey.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Bull.
For.
Councillor Dyer.
For.
Councillor Greenslade.
For.
Councillor Jewell.
For.
Councillor Kenny.
For.
Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor May.
For.
Councillor Mould.
For.
Councillor Thomas.
For.
Councillor Tudor.
Against.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that the motion to refuse has been carried by 12 votes in favour, with 1 against and no abstentions.
Thank you very much. Now, committee, do you need a 5-minute comfort break, or are you happy to go straight on? This next being the last one.
Can we go straight on?
Straight on, right. Nobody is disagreeing with that, the sound of it.
Thank you, Chair and Committee.
Okay. Thank you.
What a way
So we move on. Thank you, Councillor Muster. We move on to agenda item 4.2, PA 20 08522, Mr. Z. Vinicum, land south of Balaclava, Milo Downs, construction of a fisherman's cellar and associated works for the purposes of storage, maintenance and repair of equipment and materials associated with the applicant's fishing business. The case officer is Laura Potts. Thank you, Laura. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just sharing my screen now. If you could just confirm you could see the presentation.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. So the key issues are the principle of development, the impact on the area of outstanding natural beauty, loss of woodland cover, some other matters that I will cover, and planning conditions. There was an update that members will have received. This made reference to a typo in the agenda. Paragraph 51 should read 0.1 hectare for the size of the plot, not 1 hectare. Also, there was some additional representations both for and against the development. Over the weekend, I have had further representations both for and against the development, but neither of them bring up any new issues. So this is the location. This is the application site. Is a parcel of land, approximately 935 square metres at Milo Downs. It once formed part of the land associated with a property called Balaclava on the opposite side of the road, but was separated and sold. The whole of the site lies within the area of outstanding natural beauty, and the site is approximately 1.15 kilometres as the crow flies to the edge of Milo Bridge. This is Milo Bridge down here. So on the site plan you can see the site, which has a slightly irregular shape, and the proximity to a classified C road here. The aerial photograph shows the character of the area. There are trees on site and along the road which contribute to the rural character of the area. Now, there were some trees that were removed from the site prior to the application. There are no TPOs on the site or near the site, nor is it a conservation area. Therefore, planning permission was not required to remove them. However, they were removed without a licence, and therefore there is a Forestry Commission restocking notice for trees to be replaced on the site, which I shall come back to later in the presentation. So this is a plan of the existing area. This is the road here. You can see the access to the site. There's a gate here. There is an existing wooden shed on the site, and there's a sort of gravel, hard surfaced area here. So there's a couple of photos here just showing you views of the site from the public highway. So there's the existing shed and the gateway. And this is looking in the other direction at the site. So the proposed building is 12 metres by 8 metres adjacent to the road. You can see the outline of the existing building shown to be removed. The building is for storage and maintenance associated with the local business Amethyst Fishing Company. The family fishing business is based in Milebridge and has been fishing for generations. The company operates 2 large vessels and 2 small vessels, and storage is required for fishing equipment, maintenance, sanding and varnishing, and repairing of fishing nets, which are required to be stretched out along the length of the building. The business has equipment associated with different types of fishing, and they need to change the gear to respond to different fish. The company's hub is based at Milebridge, where the company have a boathouse stroke office approximately 1.76 kilometres away. So the building proposed is functional in its design and is considered to be the smallest possible size to meet the needs of the company. The overall height is 4.3 metres to the ridge and 2.8 metres to the eaves. The original submission was 5.01 metres to the ridge and 3.6 metres to eaves. So the applicants have reduced the height by 0.7 metres and eaves by 0.8 metres and reduced the length by 4 metres to respond to the parish and AONB officer concerns. The floor plan is, as I said, 12 metres by 8 metres. As you can see, there's some roof lights to provide natural light to the inside. So the current situation. Policy 5 of the Cornwall Local Plan provides support for business space and highlights that in the countryside it should be of a scale appropriate to its location or demonstrate an overriding locational and business need to be in that location. The applicant is currently using a redundant agricultural building in the Milebridge area. The physical condition of the building is a problem, as you can see from the slide. The new purpose-built building offers security and will keep their equipment safe from vermin who are attracted to the sea salt and moisture. This is also why the building is to be built of steel but clad in timber to overcome current problems. Lack of tenure and limited availability as tenant to control their surrounding is also an issue for the applicant. And furthermore, financial costs of land or buildings near the waterfront is very expensive and prohibitive. The boathouse in Milebridge meets some but not all of their needs. The constraints at this site are due to the tides. A facility further afield has been considered but introduces time pressures being further away from the boats, and there's also limited availability. So this proposal would offer a long-term solution for the business. Now, these are some artist impressions provided by the applicant of what the building might look like. The site lies in the AONB, which has afforded great weight in this assessment. Policies 3 and 23 of the local plan and paragraph 172 of the MPPF and emerging policies L1 and BE1 also reflect the need to ensure proposals don't adversely affect the landscape character of the area. The AONB officer sets out the building is not appropriate to the setting and functional need does not outweigh the harm caused. The view of the development would be from a stretch of road approximately 100 metres in length. The proposal will cause visual harm. The harm is from a large functional building in close proximity to the road and its urbanising effect. Visual harm is tempered by timber cladding, additional planting and the localised nature of the impact and removal of the existing shed. Furthermore, such a building is not dissimilar to other agricultural buildings seen in the area and is not considered to be a discordant feature within the character of the area. But the extent of harm does need to be considered in the planning balance. In terms of tree protection, there's a laurel hedge along the roadside which offers some screening. There are 6 trees proposed to be removed, 5 hollies and 1 oak, to be replaced by 10 trees in the area highlighted in red here. Tree protection and an arboricultural method statement would be secured by a condition. Whilst trees are to be replaced, this will not overcome the loss of woodland canopy cover, which is a negative of the scheme. A restocking notice has been issued for restocking the site with 77 conifer species. Granting planning permission doesn't remove the duties to comply with this notice. The notice has to be complied with in full. Failure to comply with a notice is an offence under the Forestry Act and could involve a conviction or fine. It's worth noting that the applicant is currently appealing this notice. There is a difference in legislation and this doesn't preclude a decision being taken on this planning application, but members should be aware that approval of this scheme would prejudice the implementation of the notice and therefore loss of trees should be part of the planning balance. In terms of biodiversity, enhancements are secured through a condition. These enhancements include bird boxes, bat boxes and bee bricks. Additional photos of the site. There is these photos here show inside the site the current hard surfacing and the existing shed. This is a view looking across the site, so this is the housing on the opposite side of the lane. This is looking further up the road, sorry. And again, this one is just from inside the site. So in terms of the balance of considerations, in support, it's a functional design solution for a local business. The building design is appropriate as it has a simplistic design, suitable materials and is reflective of other rural buildings. The application supports a local marine business and it's close to its hub in Myler Bridge. The benefits are significant to the local economy. The proposal will enable the sustainable growth and expansion of a rural business through a well-designed building. The MPPF states that planning decisions should help create conditions where businesses can invest, expand and adapt. And there is no readily available suitable alternative to the evidence functional need being met in a similar manner in an alternative location. The application is therefore supported by Policy 5 of the local plan. The negative aspects is a building that introduces built development in the AONB, which is afforded the highest status of protection. Notwithstanding the reduction in size and mitigation proposed, the proposal will cause harm to the AONB, and the parish and AONB officer object on this basis. Trees will be lost by the development and there is a loss of canopy cover. On balance, the benefits of the scheme relate to the specific business and locational need highlighted, which are considered to outweigh the modest harm to the AONB and loss of trees. Conditions proposed include the removal of the existing shed, agreement of an arboricultural method statement and external materials, biodiversity enhancements and tree protection. The application is therefore recommended for conditional approval as set out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. We do have a member of the public speaking in objection. Sorry, I'm hesitating because I can hear my voice bouncing back. Bad enough hearing it the first time. And that's Mr. Robin Snelson. Mr. Snelson, can you hear us? Is Mr. Snelson with us?
Can you...
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Snelson. It might be helpful if you speak up just a little bit, please.
Yes.
But you now have 3 minutes to put your case, and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Robin Snelson, and I've lived opposite the site of the proposed fisherman's cellar for 22 years, and I strongly object to this application. Whilst I'm sympathetic to the needs of the fishing community, I've known this family for over 40 years. I think that it is totally inappropriate use of woodland, especially when far more suitable sites abound within the parish and the surrounding neighbourhoods, and there is no evidence of any serious consideration of alternatives. The application ignores completely Policy 21 in Cornwall's local plan regarding the best use of land and existing buildings. Instead, we've witnessed the wanton destruction of historic woodland, and it's woodland that I've known since the 1970s when I was employed as a gardener at Balaclava. The industrial unit will be totally out of place in this rural residential setting. Calling it a fisherman's cellar doesn't change its appearance. It will look incongruous and result in the loss of valuable visual amenity. And far from felling trees, we're urged to plant more, hence a nationwide programme of tree planting in an effort to address climate change. And as a direct result of climate change, we now have warm, wet winters resulting in the ground becoming waterlogged. Flooding is becoming an increasing problem, and the road here has flooded 7 times this year already. Cladding and screening is suggested to help the building blend better with the environment. But I feel that buildings should be designed with reference to their location and use and should be celebrated and not hidden. This industrial unit, together with the proposed laurel hedge, will have an urbanising impact on this very rural landscape. We're concerned about traffic safety on what at times is a very busy country lane. There is no splayed entrance to provide the safe coming and going of vehicles, and were there to be one, this would vastly reduce on-site parking space. We're also concerned about the bleeping noise of a forklift truck, which will operate when loading and unloading, along with noise from cutting and welding tools, as it suggested that the facility will also be used for maintenance and repair of equipment. We're concerned with the possible smells as a result of fish-contaminated equipment coming on the site. Apparently, the need for the building to be constructed of metal
30 seconds remain.
is to prevent access to rats that will be attracted by the fishing nets and trawls. Currently, we don't have a problem with rats. And why Myler Downs? It's a site over 3 miles from the company's boats. Is it because the woodland was bought cheaply as amenity land in the hope of getting planning approval? Should that be granted today, this would certainly pave the way for a tsunami of similar speculative ventures.
3 minutes,
Thank you for giving me time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Snelson. Are there any questions for the speaker, please? I see none indicated. Would you concur, please, Vice Chairman?
Yes, I agree with you, Chairman.
Thank you. Then, Mr. Snelson, thank you very much for coming and putting your case. Thank you. We now move on to hearing from Councillor Patrick Polglaze of Milo Parish Council, who's speaking in objection. Councillor Polglaze, can you hear us? Hello, Councillor Polglaze, are you with us?
Yeah, Chairman, it's Angela Saunders from Democratic Services. He is, but he's on mute at the moment. So, Mr. Councillor Polglaze, if you can hear me, you need to press *6 on your telephone.
Hello, Councillor Polglaze.
Yeah, Councillor Polglaze is now unmuted.
Hello, Councillor Polglaze, can you hear us?
Thank goodness, yes I can. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah. And we can hear you. So you have 3 minutes to put your case, Councillor Polglaze, and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain.
No, much appreciated. Thank you, Chairman. So, look, Milo Parish Council's default planning mode is we want to do all we can to sustain and assist employment, you know, in fishing and farming, the primary industries within our beautiful parish. And in recent times, Milo Parish Council have approved applications such as Cockwell's Boatyard and Wind Sports, which is more of a tourism type situation, both in the A and B, but both with an existing level of development. So clearly, when we're looking at an application, we try to give the appropriate weight to 3 planning and other matters. And in this particular case, clearly, our parish of Mile Bridge sits within an A and B, which enjoys the highest level of landscape protection. And we do all that we can to support the A and B. It also is within the draft NDP of Mile Parish Council and falls under the National Planning Policy Framework Paragraph 172 and the other policies that we support that you've already heard about. Secondly, neighbours, where there's a reasonable case that neighbours won't have quiet enjoyment of homes which they acquire in good faith, we give that particular weight in our decisions as well too. And thirdly, clearly, sustainability and the ecology and the preservation of the natural environment. So if you councillors imagine you're driving through our beautiful countryside going to Mile Bridge, you'll see a commercial 4.2 metre high steel portal frame building adjacent to the highway. And you would ask, who on earth allowed that building to put there when it's in the highest landscape category? In summary, Mile Parish Council wishes to support a local family business under Policy 5, and they've gone a long way to reduce the scale and size of this. But unfortunately, we feel that we are unable to ignore the impact and the scale of this development and potential precedent, which goes against the AONB, and hence felt we needed to maintain our objection on these grounds. Thank you very much indeed for your time, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Questions for clarification, and I've got Councillor Kenny indicating. Councillor Kenny, please.
Yes, you were talking about the building being steel. I'm looking at the plans and it says timber cladding. Does that make a difference?
Thank you. Yes, it does. They've gone a long way to do all that they can to mitigate the effects of that. But overall, it's a steel portal frame building, and it has now been. They have now it will be clad in timber.
So not quite as bad as a steel building, which I would agree with you.
No, that's right. That's correct. I think the decision of Mile Parish Council was it's still a very big building.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor May, you're next, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just wondered, it's been reduced already in size, and I was wondering if the applicant reduced it further. I mean, would you be minded then to approve? I know you can't speak on behalf of the full parish council, but you kind of seem to be supporting in principle, but it's the actual overall size and materials that is worrying you. So if it was reduced again, would you be minded to support?
Yeah, of course it would. It is a very difficult one when you pose that hypothetical question: how big is acceptable within the AONB, and what guidance really is there to help us? We can only really judge on what's in front of us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other indications for questions. Can you concur, please, Vice Chair?
Yes, clear, Chairman.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. Then thank you very much, Councillor Polglaze, for coming along. And we move on to hearing from the applicant himself, Mr. Vinicum. Hello, Mr. Vinicum, can you hear us? Do you need to press?
Loud and clear.
Ah, you could. That's good.
I'll talk to you loud and clear.
Good. You're a little bit faint. I wonder if we could ask that you speak up as you're speaking to us. And yeah. Thank you. You have 3 minutes, Mr. Vinicum, right. And you'll be told when 30 seconds remain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, councillors. Well, 40 years in 3 minutes. My planning application before you today represents a very long journey for our family fishing business. All those years ago, when Debbie and I started our fishing life together, somewhere to store fishing gear was sort of taken for granted. We had space down the harbour and in old farm barns. But as time has gone by, the demand for land near the sea and old farm buildings has outstripped supply. This growing desire among people to come and live in Cornwall has pushed up the value of land and old redundant farm buildings that fishermen like me took for granted for many years. On the news last Friday evening, they said there was more people looking to buy a property in Cornwall than in London. It's the first time that's ever happened. Our family's fishing business future depends on having somewhere close to the harbour to store our fishing gear. Without that facility, we just couldn't carry on. This is a big worry for us. For several years prior to this little bit of land coming up for sale, I had contacted many local landowners and farmers to try and find a suitable site, all to no avail. No one wants to sell. Several have told me they are holding on for various reasons. One farmer said he's hoping to get residential planning in the future on his old barns. You can't blame him, because with residential planning, they're worth a small fortune. This small piece of land is perfect for our business needs for several reasons. It was affordable because it wouldn't get residential planning. The previous owner looked into this. It's also close enough to Myler Harbour that we can take fishing gear from the boat to the store and then pick up other fishing gear and bring it back to the boat, all on one high tide. This means we can get away again before the tide goes out. I've taken advice from experts in all the areas of ecology, trees, ground contamination, mining, and I obtained pre-app advice from the council, which was positive. Our plan to have our own fishing cellar will be a dream come true. It will give us the certain security that only comes by owning something, just like your own home. But it's more than that to us. It will give our children, who are already part of our business, the long-term security of being able to carry on their fishing life and hopefully their families to come. Fishing has never been easy, but to go forward into the future, knowing we have a place to keep our fishing gear we can call our own, might well be the difference in staying fishing for Myler for generations to come. We are very grateful to those who have expressed their support. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vinicum, and a couple of people have indicated questions. Councillor Jewell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vinicum. Yes, very well put over, if I might say so.
Thank you very much.
The previous speaker said that you had to, this site was over 3 miles to your boat, but you've just said in your speech that it's literally down at Myler. Could you just confirm where your boat is? Because we just bit misleading. How far is it for you to the boat? I believe it's just down the road, isn't it?
Yeah, literally. I mean, it's about a 5-minute ride in the car. Myler Downs down to Myler Dockyard. Oh, we call it Myler Dockyard. I mean, it's probably more known by Myler Yacht Harbour these days, but us locals have always called it Myler Dockyard, and literally it's about a 5-minute drive.
If there's a few of us locals left. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Joe.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you. It's described as an industrial unit. Can you tell us what works you would be doing on this site? I've got two questions. One is, what works would you be doing on the site?
Thank you for the questions, Councillor Kenny. Really, it's more for storage. The only sort of works we usually do is a bit of gear mending. We probably do a bit of mending our trawls and our crab pots, maybe making up new trawls, making new foot ropes for the trawls, obviously making up gear. It's more of it's in relation to fishing, and we won't be doing. I mean, as my neighbour has pointed out regarding making sort of industrial noises. This is not really. This is not what this is about. This is really more for storage and for mending fishing gear and making fishing gear.
Does that involve machinery at all?
No, it's all usually done by hand. I mean, it's obviously we most of the work is cutting ropes and mending and cutting twines. It's all fairly low key. It's the sort of stuff you see fishermen doing on quaysides, but with the obviously with the lack of quayside space these days, this is where we need this extra capacity. We're sort of like where we have worked for years. You just haven't got the space there no more. The demand for the area is down on the quayside there now. It's a car park through the winter months, and it's a boat store through the summer months, and that's really what we want to use it for.
The other issue is the trees.
Clearing out.
Sorry, I can't hear that.
Someone's got their microphone on.
We've all done it. The other issue is the trees, and obviously you've got some planting involved there, but there's the forestry order which you're trying to resist.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, I took before I bought this, I asked for a tree surgeon to have a look at the site, and he recommended there was four pines which had rot. The crowns were on the way out. He said there was rot in them, and there was one which had a lightning shape all the way right down to the ground level. And he said they presented a real risk of falling. He said pines only have a shallow root system, and they said they do pose a risk. And obviously being fairly handy to the highway there, he said it would be a good move really to sort of like, if you did buy it, to actually take them down. So that's what we did. I mean, we have left plenty of other trees there. There's plenty of oaks, there's plenty of beeches, there's plenty of hollies, there's still other Scotch pines. And the only oak I think he's mentioned about bringing down is one which is dead on its legs anyway. So
and the forest, what is the Forestry Commission asked you to plant?
Well, it's a bit of, I mean, it's hard to believe, really. They've asked us to plant 7. I mean, we've taken down 4 trees, four pines, and they're asking us to plant 77. I mean, I'm not sure if the guy has really measured the site to see exactly how many he could get on there, but he would never get that many on there. And also, I've taken the advice on this, and been advised that I was well within my rights to do what I did. But at the time, we only took down really the trees that, according to the tree surgeon, presented a risk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm afraid there's still a few more questions here, Mr. Vinnegum. Councillor Martin, you're next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Vinnegum. I just wonder, have you thought of, or would you think of, locating the building further in to the plot, away from the hedge, to allow for more screening?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Martin. I think that the tree report, the chap that done the tree report for me on site, I think he placed the idea. I think was placing the shed there to allow to sort of prevent any tree root damage to the existing large oaks and beeches that are lining the other parts of the land. So I think he placed it there because of the, he obviously had to take into consideration the root systems for the other various trees growing within the site.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Councillor May, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and morning, Mr. Vinnegum. I just wanted to ask you about the smells from the pots and stuff, because I know I've got some lobster pots and crab pots up by me, and as you walk around the corner, you do get quite a whiff from it. So. Yeah. So I don't know whether there's anything you can do to alleviate any of the smells.
Thank you for the question, Councillor May. I mean, I have brought gear ashore before, and we always usually pressure wash everything off. But obviously there is a salty smell. But the pots, usually if there's any seaweed, bait is always removed. It's always pressure washed off. The gear is always usually, if we are storing gear, it's usually well cleaned off before we bring it back. And obviously bringing it within the building so we can close the doors. It will prevent any vermin actually getting in. And obviously, if there's any sort of salty smell, it will be within the building. So I don't think there will. I say it won't be a problem from that aspect. I was going to say, having bought gear in and out for decades, really. We always clean the gear off. You'll see us down on the quay at the harbour there with the pressure washer going, and we clear it off, so when it comes in and we store it, it's in a good condition and it doesn't present any salty, or it certainly doesn't smell of any bait, that's for sure.
And just to come back, Chairman, something different. On the artist impressions, they've got laurel, and I assume you're not really going to plant laurel. It will be like holly and other native species.
Sorry for speaking over you there, Councillor May. there is actually there's about 120 cherry laurels that are planted along that roadside hedge. It's in keeping really with what's planted on most of the hedgerows in that vicinity. There's laurel hedges abounding the hedgerows on all the roads driving into Myler. If you come in from like the Norway inside, you'll come through plenty of laurel. There used to be a canopy of it years ago until they trimmed it back. But it's sort of very similar, really, in keeping with what else is in the immediate area.
Yeah, but there's laurel and laurel. The one you've got indicated on the plan, it's more of a hedging laurel, where the laurel that you're talking about is grown in parks and woodlands. So that's the bigger leaf laurel. Right.
Well, the laurel that we planted was obviously chosen for its obviously its screening properties, for its hedging properties. It was suggested to me by a gardening chap who actually he looked at the site and suggested the best sort of laurel to choose for that actual site. So that's what we went for that for. Obviously the screening, there was other screening that we're going to place again within the land again. So in a couple of seasons time, you would drive by, you wouldn't even see anything. I mean, there would be plenty of screening that the whole building would be covered.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor May. I've just got one question, Mr. Vinicum. Forklift truck noise was mentioned. Will there be forklift truck movement on the site?
No, well, we actually, I say we have got a little forklift truck, but it's a tiny little thing. It's only operated under battery, and we don't actually have any. There's no actual. The one we got is a fairly old one. It doesn't actually have the actual beeping, because most of the time, if you're up there, you're just driving around on your own anyway. But it's I don't think you probably wouldn't even hear it, and there's no beeping anyway. I mean, this is probably a very low key operation. It's not like a sort of a probable go-to workplace like someone like an engineer working out of a shed full time. This store really is what it is. It's a store for fairly infrequent use, but with the desire, obviously, with the fishing needs, you never know. You've probably got to change you need to change a trawl. If you smash up a trawl, it'll come fast and break the trawl up. You need to get the new trawl on. So that's the whole idea, really, to better come in alongside the quay, unshackle, lift stuff off, take it up to the store, and then bring out the new gear and go down, replace it, and the boat is away again on that tide. So I don't think there will be any. There's going to be no industrial noise, is what the objections are trying to raise here.
You're confident that you won't cause neighbour nuisance, is what you're trying to say?
Absolutely. I would try to my best to sort of keep. I would like to actually work in and fit in nicely. I mean, having been a family 5 generations within the village of Myler, we've over 100 years of our family here in the village, in the fishing and marine sector. And we get on well. We have good relations with all our neighbours and all our other people that we work alongside. And I'm sure up there, no one actually probably noticed us from one week to the next. So I think a lot of it's been blown out of proportion, to be honest.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Vinicum.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions. Would you confirm that, please, Vice Chairman?
Yes, I agree, Chairman.
Thank you. Then thanks for joining us, Mr. Vinicum, and we'll move straight on to hearing from the divisional member, Councillor Simmons. Can you hear? Are you there, Councillor Simmons?
Yes, I can hear you, Madam Clerk.
You know the rules really well, so you'll be asked to sum up after 5 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning, Madam Chair and fellow councillors. When this application first was submitted, I spoke to Laura and we both agreed that it was very finely balanced. The parish council objection was, we support the application in principle and like to support local businesses, but object to the building is too large. The cladding needs to be changed to fit in with the surrounding area. The screening needs to be increased and there should be no change of use in the future to residential on this site. The applicant listened to the parish council and amended his application to lower the height, change the cladding from metal to wood to fit into the surrounding area, agreed to more screening than 110 cherry laurel that's already planted, agreed no change of use, and agreed to demolish the shed which was built on this land many years ago. I feel with these amendments, this application is now in keeping with the area. This then went back to the parish council on a 5-day notice, which they still could not support, so maintained their objection. With this, the applicant again listened to the parish council and amended his original application by 25%, a huge reduction, which then went back to the parish council on another 5-day notice, and the parish still maintained their objection. The planning officer and myself fully support this application, so I am a little bit at a loss why this is before you this morning. I support this application because fishermen's huts, sheds, cellars are crucial to all fishermen and are as crucial as the boat itself. Take Cadgwith now. If they lose their huts, this could be the end of fishermen at Cadgwith. This applies to all fishermen. The applicant, Mr. Vinicum, is the 5th generation of his family of fishermen and are part of the River Fell oystermen, the only oystermen in the world that must dredge by sail only, and are restricted to certain months of the year to keep this business sustainable for the future, a tradition that must not be allowed to die. That's why I put my name forward in tomorrow's motion to support Cornwall's shellfishing industry. At present, Mr. Vinicum employs 10 local people, and his fishing gear is kept in an old redundant barn in Myler, which is not fit for purpose. This application is to give Mr. Vinicum security to have his always gear under one roof. This application is in keeping with the general policies on page 33 of the Cornwall Local Plan 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and with policy 5, business and tourism 1A, 1C and 1D. All Myler Parish is in an area of outstanding natural beauty, so every application will bring some harm to it. The Parish Council and myself are very protective of our precious AONB. I am sure you know this by the number of applications I've brought before you over the past 4 years. The last application only been a few months ago, PA 20-04242, to demolish one bungalow and to replace it with 3 2-storey 4-bedroom houses, which was supported. A considerable difference in harm to a fisherman's hut. The neighbourhood development plan is at regulation 14. And the comments from the public consultation are still being studied and analysed, so some weight could be given. However, the plan may not be legally compliant. Finally, Cornwall Council's logo with its 15 bezants, a tin miner, sadly now extinct, and a fisherman shows Cornwall's proud heritage. So can I urge you to support this application today and not to put a nail in the coffin of our fishermen? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Simmons. Are there any questions for the divisional member, please?
Nothing yet, Chairman.
No crosses coming forward, so no. I'm going to move on. Thanks, Vice Chairman. Right, and we move on to questions of the planning officer. Are there any questions of the planning officer, please? Right. Sorry, I have to take a minute to move the boxes that come up. Councillor Kenny, you're next, please.
Thank you. Yes, I'm looking at the original comments of the tree officer, which was back in November, which aren't actually repeated in the report, and it appears that he, with suitable conditions, that at that stage he approved the scheme, and it wasn't until they started coming in with the order for the 77 trees that that changed. Am I right? Have I understood that correctly?
Laura, are you there? Hello, Laura. Yeah. Laura Potts.
Someone's sharing the screen.
Hello, yes, sorry, I'll stop sharing the screen a minute.
It's bad enough seeing me in small.
Yeah, you're correct. We did have some original comments from the forestry officer who was supportive subject to conditions, but then following the information coming to light about the restocking notice, he issued some revised comments which are in the agenda.
So in your opinion, because you've got a fair bit in the conditions about the trees, do you feel that the conditions you have there would reflect his original conclusion?
Yes, I think they would. We're seeking to agree tree protection, so fencing that would be put up prior to any construction on the site, and also a detailed arboricultural method statement, so how they would carry out the development taking the trees' health in mind.
And obviously, if his challenge to the Forestry Commission doesn't work, he will then have to take on board the extra trees as well. Or is this planning permission going to stop that?
Well, as explained in the report, the Forestry Commission notice cannot be has to be complied with in full. So you can't, as I understand it, you can't comply in part with it. So it's either you comply with it or you don't. So in approving the planning permission, you have to take the view that you wouldn't be able to comply with the restocking notice. So it is a material planning consideration that those trees wouldn't be able to be planted on site.
Chair, could I perhaps come in? It's Matt Stevenson.
Yes, of course you can, Matt.
I think basically the issue is, Councillor Kenny, if his appeal is not successful against that restocking notice, it could well prevent him implementing the planning consent should he be granted that today.
So effectively the trees would come first and he couldn't build.
Well, it's a separate thing. Notwithstanding if he got consent today, he'd still need to go through the appeal against his restocking notice. If he was successful, obviously he could implement the planning permission. If he was unsuccessful, I think that amount of restocking would prevent him from implementing the planning consent that he might get on today's plans.
But we don't make that a condition. That's just a legal issue that he has to do that.
We're dealing with the material consideration of the loss of trees, and that's why the case officer has put those conditions on in the normal way we would do on any other planning application, impacting on trees and getting replacements and protecting the existing trees. So we're dealing with the material loss of those trees and protection of those trees in a normal planning way. The separate issue that the applicant's going to have to go through is this restocking notice. But that's separate from the material considerations you're giving the trees on this.
That has to come first.
Well, the planning applications before you, so that it doesn't matter which way round you do it. Obviously, it would be a lot clearer for you if he'd already appealed the restocking notice and you knew the outcome of that, because you wouldn't be second guessing what would happen there. But your decision today wouldn't prejudice his appeal. That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Kenny. Right, Councillor Tudor, you're next, please.
Yeah, my question was along similar veins, really. I was trying to sort of get to the nub of what the situation was with the trees. So, and I'm still not quite clear about the restocking notice and where that fits in, even though I know it's just been explained to Councillor Kenny. There's no way we can link that with.
No, there's separate legislation, separate requirements, so no, they shouldn't be linked through it. As Laura's adequately explained, there's plenty of powers that the Forestry Commission have anyway to go through their own legislation. So I would suggest that committee don't let that cloud their judgment and consideration of this planning application. And clearly we've already set out what we consider is the material issues around the trees on the site.
Thank you. I did have another question in that. Is this it's a TPO area, an area TPO presumably, that this particular bit of woodland, and I just wondered when that TPO for that area was put in.
I think Laura can correct me, but there's no TPO on this site?
No, there's no, right.
That's correct, there's no TPO on the site.
Okay. All right, Councillor Tudor?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, right. I can see no further questions.
I agree.
Thank you. Then we'll move straight into debate. Who wishes to start, please?
Jackie, could I perhaps come in before you do, having listened to the questions? Just very quickly, maybe just to help committee. Thank you, Chair. There was an issue around potential use of the site for other things in future, and if committee were concerned about that, then we could condition that the site and the building is only used in connection with the storage and maintenance of the fishing gear. That would just give the benefit, should the building and site change in future, that it would come back into planning to consider that change. Secondly, the issue of odour came up to do with the gear, and the applicant pointed out that the gear would be stored in the building. Again, this could be fairly simply conditioned that gear is stored within the building, just to give that level of control and protection to any neighbouring properties from that odour. Again, should committee wish to approve it and add those additional layers of control. Thank you.
So you're suggesting that there could be some strengthening of conditions around usage and odour?
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, Councillor Jewell, please. Councillor Jewell.
Sorry, yeah, it took a while to get me buttons clicked right there, Jackie. Yeah, no problem. I think I'm just going to go straight to approve as set out. I think the conditions that Matt has just put in will tie everything up. I think this is we've got to support local businesses. He's a very prominent fisherman in the area, and he should be well supported. And he needs all the help. This is finally, he's been waiting all these years to finally get somewhere of his own. He's been at the beck and call of farmers. I mean, we've had buildings ourselves we rent out, and to get your own building is the golden nugget. He will have security. He's just up the road from the harbour, and I think we should support this chap 100%. I approve a set out. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Kenny, from your enthusiasm there, do I take it you might want to second that, please?
Yes, it's very, I don't think I have ever, in the entire 4 years, ever disagreed, perhaps longer than that, ever disagreed with the ANOB recommendation. But I think in this case, we're looking at technically a shed, a large shed, but I don't believe that having a shed there is going to damage the ANOB. I welcome those two last conditions. I was going to suggest exactly the same thing, and I do think that the ability, the Forestry Commission can look after itself, and if they really want 77 trees in there, that will stop the planning application. So it's not a weapon for the against or pro. So I'm very happy to second this one.
Thank you very much. Vice Chairman, you're next, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm in agreement with the proposer and seconder. I think we need to do all we can to promote Cornish heritage and jobs for the future of the family. I did hear some reference to a forklift being possibly noisy and smelly, but I think the gentleman said it was an electric forklift. Yes. And there was no reversing noise on it. But if it was deemed to have a reversing noise, it could be white noise, which is not a beeping noise, as we see with a lot of delivery lorries nowadays, sort of hissing noise. So yes, that doesn't bother me at all. So I am fully in support of this application.
Thank you very much. Councillor May, you're next, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would have seconded it, but Councillor Kenny got in there all great. I think the divisional member said it all. I think he spoke really well, described it all to a T. And we've also heard that the conditions now will be more robust around smell and machinery. So yeah, happy to approve.
Thank you. I've got no other people wishing to speak, but I am just going to go back to Matt a minute before then going back to Councillor Jewell. Matt, you talked about odour, you talked about usage. Is there any need for stronger conditions on noise?
No, I think really
You're covered.
Those additional conditions, those things would do the job. I think the applicant's already explained that it's relatively low key, and from my limited knowledge of the industry, I don't think there'll be anything too untoward there that we need to control regarding noise. Thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor Jewell, we've got your proposal with an added strengthening on usage of the site and odour. Are you happy with what Mr. Stevenson said, and are you happy to move forward with your proposal for us set out under that basis?
Of course,
yeah,
100%, 100%.
Good, and you, Councillor Kenny?
Yes, thank you.
Right. Thank you. Then Emma, would you like to take the vote, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll do a roll call vote. If you could indicate whether you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Alvey?
For.
Councillor Brown?
For.
Councillor Bull?
Oh, for.
Councillor Dyer? Councillor Dyer? You're on mute, Councillor Dyer.
Somebody did it. I did it. I am in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Greenslade?
For.
Councillor Jewell?
For.
Councillor Kenny?
For.
Councillor Martin?
For.
Councillor May?
For.
Councillor Mould?
For.
Councillor Thomas?
For.
Councillor Tudor?
For.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that the motion to approve has been carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. And we now move on to agenda item 5, any other business of urgency, and I've been advised of none. So I want to thank all the officers and all of you. And look, we're through by dinner time. Oh, Vice Chairman.
Praise the Lord.
Yes, as this is coming towards the end of our 4-year session, is there another planning meeting within this setup, please?
Yes, there is, Vice Chairman. There's one on the 19th of April. That'll be the last one before the elections in May.
Thank you.
And I was hoping we could have had pasties, but it looks like it'll be virtual still. Councillor Jewell.
I was just going to ask the same question, but I think Jackie should send us all one pasty in the post for that day.
Well, I'll have
I think she's been saving up all her expenses. She at least send us one in the post. What do you think? Delivery.
I'll have nothing better to do through those 3 weeks. Councillor Jewell, I could drive them around to your...
Well, steady, social distancing.
Chairman, it's Emma Code. I'm just waiting for confirmation once the meeting's